And according to the little colored rectangle at the I don't mean colored like that way. I mean like it is a red color of a rectangle in the bottom of the screen. We are recording. We are live on YouTube and whatever device you might be streaming it through.
How's it going, guys?
Brian, this is Brian, and I am Jake, also known as the beard guy and the ear guy. I'm not wearing my normal plugs right now. I'm wearing my prosthetic earlobes that I wear for my business. But that's how one of our friends and fans longingly referred to us. So he tried to clarify with the actual name. And I was like, no, nay, I say. It's Mr. Ear Guy to you, kind sir.
Mr. Beard Guy.
Moving on.
I like it.
So this week's kind of interesting. We have a UFC event, but we also have an Invicta card. And while I have seen every single Invicta event, we've never formally covered one.
Right. That's one thing I was going to point out is it's I think it's kind of a first for us to basically kind of go out on a limb and cover a lot of what's going on in Invicta. And for that reason, I mean, we have a pretty good reason for it.
Because my bachelor party is Saturday, and we are doing it at Invicta. Because if I'm going to pay to watch women do anything, it's going to be something I can't do to them.
Right.
Something that is not going to stimulate my genitals and get me in trouble with the lady.
Maybe.
Well, I think it's interesting that they don't have ring card men. Like I'm not of that persuasion, but I just think it's equal balance, right? I think there should be ring card men, and I would like to volunteer. Shannon Knapp, I will put on a G-string. I will wax my buttocks. I will do what it takes to be your first ring card boy.
It's pretty intense. I mean, I got the visual. Let me tell you guys.
He likes what he sees. This is the main event right here.
That's it.
But yeah, so if you're going to be at Invicta FC 17 in Orange County this weekend, come say hi. We have stickers that we will give you, and Brian might blow you if you buy him enough beer.
Absolutely.
It happened before where we have been in public and people have said, hey, is your name? And he just grabs it.
You know what?
And just rips it out of them jeans, them apple bottom jeans. And
not even cool.
Okay.
Not even cool.
I could joke. I'll put myself under the bus. I will bottom for you while Brian blows you off. So we're both losing and being service animals in a way.
But this is all for the podcast.
Podcast, though. If you're just gonna come up to us and talk to us, I don't care. You gotta.
There has to be some reciprocation here.
Instead of a reach around, I'm getting flattery and praise. Okay, don't get it twisted. You're still giving me something.
How many guys are coming up to us this weekend because of this?
Hey, I can't help but notice.
Right, and they're all going to be coming after me because they're like, "You're the beard guy." I'm just like, "Oh boy."
At least you can play with it. It's like a distraction.
No. Okay, How did it go from like a full fight card full of women fighting each other to guys sucking each other off?
Because my Y chromosome was like, fuck this place, I'm out of here. And I'm just XX chromosome up in here.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, it's going to be a pretty badass card.
It'll be fun.
It's headlined by Tanya Evinger versus Colleen Schneider. Miss Schneider trains with a Mr. Josh Barnett.
Right.
One thing I noticed is their experience is not exactly commensurate. You have 17-5 Tanya Evinger versus 10-6 Colleen Schneider, and if you look at their career trajectories, very different. The last time Tanya Evinger won a decision was December 7th, 2013, so it's a ways back. The last time that Colleen Schneider actually had a stoppage victory, unless you count a doctor stoppage last year, was September 7th, 2013.
Wow.
So I mean, they're just the opposite. You have one who's a dynamic 8 KO, 6 submission, 3 decision versus 4 KO, 2 sub, 4 decision.
Right.
I think that's kind of note. Obviously, MMA math doesn't work, but it shows you where their propensities are. It shows you where they've had success, and it also shows what led to a title shot. Here in this situation, we have a gal in Colleen Schneider who's on a 4-fight winning streak. 2 of those wins are in her last 4-fight streak. 2 of them are split decision wins against 500 fighters.
That's not very good.
The gal, Brianna Fissori, she ended up losing a second time after this one, but she, as they stand now, she's a 500 fighter. And then you had Raquel. This is a fun one. I'm going to try this out. Pa'aluhi, who's 5-5. Yeah,
that's not bad. Not bad.
So, maybe she had a little blue alien there helping her out to make her look better.
So
a la Lilo and Stitch.
Schneider, she is outside of the horsewomen looking in, essentially, because she's not part of that group.
No, she is not.
Right.
Yeah. So the training that's gone on.
That's gotta be kind of hard, though. Huh?
A little
like
weird.
that, you know, like, oh, here's like, it almost seems like it's like what was that movie? The high school movie.
Mean Girls.
Yeah. It's like the Mean Girls. You know, it's like they're the popular ones, and then everybody else is just like, fuck those girls.
Yeah, and she's in the 135 weight class, so it's kind of interesting. And I wonder, you know, obviously Ronda Rousey hasn't trained with Josh Barnett and Eric Paulson, but I think that would be a very smart move for her.
That would,
because
absolutely.
Ronda could definitely stand to learn some wrestling. Obviously, she didn't need it against like Sarah McMahon,
right?
But there are other situations. And wrestling is the great transition. It'll get you from A to B
exactly
all the time.
There's a difference between relying on a judo straight to submission and doing a judo throw and having a scramble and not really knowing how to transition between that judo throw and the submission. That's where wrestling would definitely help as far as ground control, hip control, you know, everything as far as balance. So yeah.
And, you know, one thing, when you look through this Invicta card, we're going to go through, and I'm going to go, you know, briefly touch on the women's records, but I don't want you to be too distracted by that. Like, one thing I advocate pretty seriously on this show is that, like, women's MMA is still very much like what MMA was for men a decade ago.
Right.
Like, look at Randy Couture's record. If you want a stellarly mediocre record by today's standard, look at him. There are lots of guys. Ken Shamrock, for example, has a glowingly awful record. But, you know, there's training techniques are different, and the number of training partners you can rely on, and all these things.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because if you think about it, like, once upon a time when these guys of the golden age, I guess you would call it, of MMA were fighting, they were just beating guys so badly because they were at such a higher level than everybody else as far as experience. And now that seems like a lot of the guys who just wouldn't want to retire this or that, they're going up against these kids who put in that time and effort into learning different crafts of the trade. And I mean, their record shows that they're just getting beat over and over again. Obviously, it's one thing to have age be a factor, but I mean, it's not necessarily just age.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I'll pull up Randy Couture's record because I think it'll surprise a lot of people. You know, not even including like his later losses or his retirement fight with Lyoto Machida, but he had. I mean, let's look at here. At the time of his Machida loss, he was 19-10. And so then he became 19-11, which by today's standards,
right,
there isn't anybody who I think would be called or considered a GOAT or a Hall of Famer who's a 2-1 ratio fighter. But in that time, that was still very competitive.
Absolutely.
And you got to keep in mind that Randy Couture ended up going on a pretty significant win streak towards the end of his career that really offset some of those losses.
Exactly.
And, you know, a 10-6 record truly is not that bad. 17-5 record in this context is not that bad. I'm expecting Evinger to win. I think stylistically she's real tough, and she obviously has an experience advantage. They've both been fighting for quite some time. I just feel like Evinger has amassed more experience. She stayed more active, and I'd love to see Schneider win because I would love the idea of a Josh Barnett calling down the heavens in a Caucasian version of the Black Beast Derek Lewis to celebrate lightning, semen, fluids everywhere. I think it would be a great show, but who knows? I don't think that it's going to happen.
It'll be a fun one to watch, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, regardless. I mean, that's the thing. That's one of the things with Invicta that I've always appreciated. I think I've said it with Brett previously on the show, was Invicta is kind of a lot like Glory for me. I don't know everything about everyone. I'm not fanatical in the same way that I am about UFC.
They're exciting fights.
Yeah, so I just kind of get to relax, go, okay, we'll see what happens.
Right.
And also, because these women's careers are, their trajectory is just this, wavelength that's going in rapid succession of up and down, I can sit there and enjoy it and not be heartbroken when my expectations are,
exactly.
I'm not trying to have a self-fulfilling prophecy where I had to be right. I just go into it and I go, hey, this is going to work itself out.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever watched a video on YouTube of two bugs fighting? You might not, but I saw somebody had shared one of those Japanese game shows.
Sounds awful.
It's a scorpion and a praying mantis, and they just put them in a tub together, and they fight to the death. And it's just like, I don't have a dog in this race. We'll see what happens. Oh, the men. It's one of those kinds of things.
That's very strange.
So moving on to the co-main event, kind of interesting. We have two gals making their Invicta debuts. One of them is a short notice replacement. Kayleen Medeiros is replacing Mizuki Inoue versus Aline Serio.
How short of notice was that replacement?
It was announced today before we went on the air. So, I mean, it's pretty rapid.
Wow, with less than a week.
Sounds like it. And I don't know if she was supposed to be on this card before, but she wasn't on the billing when I bought the tickets. So, cool for her. Both of them are making their Invicta debut. I don't know if I mentioned that. The Medeiros lady's on a 3-fight streak. The Serios lady is on a 2-fight streak. But this is one of those situations I'm talking about. Medeiros is a 6-4 fighter. Serio is a 9-5 fighter. And then let's get into those fun methods of victory. For Medeiros, you have a 1 TKO, 1 sub, 4 decisions.
Yeah.
Serio, you have 5 KO, 3 sub, 1 decision.
Wow.
Who's typically going to be viewed as the more lethal fighter,
That's
right?
True. Although, I mean, they very much can possibly cancel each other out and just go straight to a decision.
But if I'm Serio, I'm fighting tooth and nail, because if I win, then I become a 2-for-1 fighter because I'd have a record of 10-5.
Right.
So I'm pulling for you, lady.
And it's funny because if you think about it, like, how much do you think that takes into account or a factor as far as, obviously a fighter going into a fight is going to be like, okay, I'm going to win. I'm going into this as a mindset of no matter what, I'm going to win. At least I would hope every fighter would do that. At the same time, there's always going to be that, like, especially nowadays with stats being as big as they are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how much of a factor it comes into playing with their mind games and this and that, as far as being like, well, I don't want to be a sub 500 fighter. So,
well, there are a lot of fighters back in the early days of the UFC and in MMA's infancy, or NHB, if you will. Those guys would outright admit to lying about their record. I had 500 street fights and I never lost. And just inane shit like that, because there was no SureDog. There was no Wikipedia that you could verify these things with. It was just a crazy allegation. And we were left to go, okay, all right, I can't prove him wrong. And so with these guys, it's kind of the same thing. I wonder how you get up for it. And also, I think that, like, let's say hypothetically that we had Serio and she's a 9-5 fighter. Okay. Let's take those 5 losses. We'll put them in the win column. We'll say that she's a 14-0 fighter. Would an athletic commission license a woman who's 6-4 to going against a 14-0?
No.
See, that's one of the things. It's weird because you see stuff like that all the time, right? But we should we? I mean, here's a gal who is a treadwater fighter who's had 10 professional fights. Really, it's 4 more fights than that. That's not that innumerable. But then you look at the amount of experience that you can gain from one fight. You win more from wins and blah, blah.
Right.
I just think that it's so weird to me how you can see some fights where like, this doesn't necessarily make me uncomfortable, but just as an example, there are a lot of times where an athletic commission, I don't know how the fight got licensed. Even on a short notice, it's almost even more so on a short notice, because it's like, okay,
it actually gives validity to basically being like, wow, look at the absurd difference between this level of fighter and this fighter.
Yeah, like look at Rocky, right? Rocky Balboa had a full training camp when he fought Apollo Creed.
Right.
He was not a short notice replacement. Well, like that short notice. Obviously, he was replacing another guy who broke his hand, but the story was that he still had a camp. As an athletic commission, if you don't, if you're already a lesser fighter and you don't have the time to prepare against a guy who is prepared, it's kind of Ovin St. Preux John Jones, where it's like, I don't know, that's kind of a weird one. Kind of tangential. Hope you bared with us. It looks like we might have dropped a listener or a viewer. Whatever. You missed out because I'm about to say the winning lottery numbers. Fucker. Moving on.
I thought you were pulling on my earball or your ear for a second. You were just like,
bloop, bloop. And that's 24. Moving on. We got Latoya Walker, 5-0. Latoya Walker, who has 2 KOs and 3 decisions. Kind of impressive. Versus Charmaine Tweet, who's a lady who I have been involved in tweets with all week, it seems like. We have a fan who's very polite, and he tags us in tweets about the Saskatoon slap and things of that nature. And then there's like 100 notifications that come after it. It's not a problem. It makes me feel less compulsive when I look at things. Like, if I look at the Instagram and there's no new likes, I feel compulsive. But if there is, I feel like, yeah, I do make good shit, don't I? On my phone, because I look at people like Photoshop Steve, put it like, because he does those videos where it shows the effort he put into it. I'm like, bitch, please. I took the picture. I illegally took the picture off Google. I then erased some of it and I put it on top of it and I put my watermark on. That's it.
That Britney Spears one.
Yep, that was pretty good.
Oh, man, that was pretty good.
Thank you. But Latoya Walker, she's coming in against Charmaine Tweet, who has 2 KOs, 5 subs, and 1 decision. And check this out. Tweet's last 2 losses came to Cyborg and Julia Budd. Wow. So those are 2 damn good women's fighters.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't even consider those losses. You know what I mean?
At that point. Plus, check this out. Charmaine Tweet, how much taller do you think she's going to be?
I can't even think of it. I don't know.
Take Brian Caraway's wiener, make it exist, multiply it by 7. She's going to have a 7-inch height advantage over her opponent.
What's the reach advantage?
I don't know. I couldn't really pull up an accurate gauge online, so I wish I knew.
Crazy.
But 7-inch vertical is nothing to laugh at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially against somebody who has a propensity for submissions.
Right. You gotta gain you gotta close the gap essentially, and then with the 7-inch.
Even when you explode inside, all I have to do is collapse on top of you.
Right.
When I do jiu-jitsu, I use my length all the time. I always call it cheating too. I'm not about to hide it. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to cheat right now. I'm going to post up on you, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do because my leverage is too severe, and I'll just wait you out. When you get tired, I'm going to lift you up and put you where I want you.
I like what you said there. My leverage is too severe, a.k.a. I'm going to lay my fat belly on you. And then...
Hey, whoa. What I do is I get in the guard, and I pop my hips out, and then I do that Beyonce butt, and then I creak up, like those the little bird things that like dip the water.
I know what you're talking about.
I get up, and then I put them where I want. Whether I want to pull them over. I have it down to a science. My thinking is this, jiu-jitsu guys of the world, why be good at everything when you only need to be really good at one maneuver? You look at these
you look at it like a majority of wrestlers, especially in the collegiate level, and they have those go-to moves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they train in multiple wrestling takedowns or this or that, but they have those few specific ones that they go to all the time.
Yeah, when in doubt, just boom, go to it. So, that's my hot tip. If you guys want to take it, I know you come here for the jiu-jitsu technique. Oh, there's a character named Jiu-Jitsu in the green room, which I'm reiterating to you that you need to see because I loved it. If we have any fans, followers, anybody else loved it, you can let us know because I would like to know people who saw it. Because I think that my fiance and I are the only people who saw it. But
yeah, I'll have to check it out.
From the sounds of it, it's like it involves hardcore music, violence, and Patrick Stewart. So I couldn't lose. And the main character was wearing a minor threat shirt the whole time. So for those of you who don't watch us on YouTube, you're missing out right now. Boosh. That just happened.
Wow.
Anyway, and I'm also not going to describe in the audio format what happened. That's what I meant by boosh. In case there was this is not one of those instances where I narrate what I'm doing. I'm going to leave this intrigue and mystery, and it's going to confound you until you can get on the Wi-Fi, then scroll through and try and find the exact moment that I booshed. Bitch, please.
I'll give you
you walked into this.
CM Punk.
I drew a Pepsi logo on my shoulder there, I admit it. I pulled out my back and never fought in the UFC.
Well, that might also be what happened.
So I'm going to expect Charmaine Tweet to win. I think that she has more tools. But I will say that her opponent, Latoya Walker, she won her Invicta debut against Peggy Morgan, who you might remember from being on The Ultimate Fighter. So, she rises to the occasion with bigger names than her own. But I think that Tweet's just kind of got her. Okay. Moving on, Amanda Bell versus our friend, to the podcast, Megan Anderson. Amanda Bell has a 3-3 record, but this chick is psychotic. And what I mean by that in the most flattering of ways.
She just say, watch your tone, man. You're calling some girl psychotic, and she might listen to the podcast.
Oh, no, not Anderson. Bell.
No, I understand.
But Bell's not going to listen to us because we're nobodies. Anderson's only going to listen to us because we bought tickets and put her as the fighter, so she's going to make some money off
We're
of us.
going to be there. So
I'll wear a cup.
If she's psychotic, I'm just saying. Psychotic women.
Lorena Bobbitt only got John Bobbitt's penis because he was asleep. I'm going to be extra vigilant watching around. Don't think you can get me. Anyway, she has her most recent loss was to Faith Van Dean, who lost to Cyborg, was able to fight Cyborg. That's good. But then check this out. Her second pro fight, after losing her pro debut, she fought Charmaine Tweet in the co-main event of a promotion.
Wow.
That takes fucking balls to be like, yeah, I'll be your co-main event. Yeah, I'll fight the super experienced girl. Yeah, I lost my only professional fight. Suck my dick. Like, that's kind of the attitude you have to go.
Props to her.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Like, even she might not be the best fighter, but she's got moxie. And there's something to be said about moxie. And then she's going against Megan Anderson. I myself am engaged to a gigantus, so I appreciate this gigantus. She's 6 feet tall and 145 pounds, and she makes me look like a puny mortal, and I'm totally okay with that.
Those legs, it just seems like legs for days. It's just like, oh, there's your hips. You know what I mean? It's like all legs and then like small torso. It almost seems like with her.
And she'll be dangerous with it. She has 1 KO win in her past. She has 2 subs and 2 decisions. It's kind of a neat trick up her sleeve.
Right.
I think that very likely this is going to go to KO.
Yeah.
I really think so, because the clinch game I think is going to be there. That's really where she established herself in her last fight, Megan Anderson, that is. So that's what I'm expecting. Then we have Christine Stanley, whose nickname I forgot, but I think it's Knuckles. So yeah, it fits. Short, I get it. She's not an echidna with red hair, but whatever. I guess none of us are either. But she has 4 victories, all 4 of which are KOs. Then you have Shannon Sims, who has 1 submission victory and 1 decision victory. Then 2 losses. Both of those are decisions, so she's never been finished in her MMA career. But this just sounds kind of like a losing effort.
Yeah,
I feel like this is not what you want to be doing on your Saturday night.
No.
And she's probably not getting paid enough for this.
Her name got drawn from a hat.
She's like, oh, well, the Hunger Games for this year, and you're the champion. Go off into that forest and get shot with an arrow that is Christine Stanley's manly fist. I don't know. It was the only thing that came to mind. I'm not trying to be gender.
Stanley Manly.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be like gender whatever. Like, gender is fluid, according to Tumblr and all that. You know, we just realized
fluid.
Fallon Fox hasn't fought since 2014.
Right.
I, for one, am remiss about that, because I love just hearing, you know, Joe Rogan talk about her wiener and then her being offended and rebutting. And I love that embroiled controversy that makes no sense and doesn't benefit anybody. So that's cool. Brian, when you go to the bathroom, which sign do you go at? Do you go at the one that has the triangle bottom or just the 2 sticks?
Just the 2 sticks.
Okay. I think I might be going in the wrong one then.
Well, I mean, it happens. Sometimes
it just smells so much better in there, you know?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I've been on some women's bathrooms before where, like, the men's bathroom's been occupied.
The little metal toilet or the trash can in the stall.
Right.
You know what they put in there? You don't want to know. Placenta is the answer. Wadded up placenta.
Right. No, yeah, I've definitely been in some women's bathrooms before where, like, the men's has been occupado, and it's pretty brutal in there sometimes.
Yeah, no thanks. Talking about brutality, let's move on to UFC Rotterdam. We have Andrei Arlovsky, the Pitbull, or Warlovsky, versus Alistair. I'm still going to call him the Demolition Man Overeem.
Not Ubereem.
I don't like Ubereem, and I don't like the Reem Overeem.
Is that his newest one? He's going by the Reem? Or
yeah, that's what his like documentary series and stuff has been called. And yeah. Okay, I mentioned these 2 names to you. Who do you think has more MMA fights? You are being judged right now.
Does this include K1?
No, this is just MMA fights.
Arlovsky.
I think I wrote this down wrong. It's 40-14 for Reem, which I was like, what? And then 25-11 for Arlovsky.
40? That doesn't seem like that makes
40
sense.
and 14.
That doesn't seem like that makes sense.
But you got to include he was a light heavyweight. I always kind of distinguished him back then too. That, you know, his career didn't start when he was a heavyweight. He started out as a string bean who fought Vitor Belfort and lost.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Check that shit out. It blows your brain. But anyway, yeah, you always think about Andrei Arlovsky because he's been a staple and a mainstay in the UFC for so long.
Then if you think about that, okay, if you were to look at Overeem's record in MMA as being 40-14, add K1 on top of that. The guy's got a pretty extensive resume.
Oh, yeah. Here's another quiz for you. Stefan Struve Bigfoot Silva, who has more MMA fights?
Stephen Struve.
Okay, then yeah. 30-8 versus 19-8.
Right.
But I mean, you look at how old Bigfoot is, you're like, oh, he's got to have 1,000 fights.
Right. And that's one of the things that like I automatically like lump Silva in with like Nogueira's.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because they're Brazilian or anything. It just seems like, I don't know, something about them makes it seem like they've been in for so long. I don't know if it's just.
Well, I think that's one of the things is like look at Shogun's record. I mean, he doesn't have that many fights. When you think about like how much of a mainstay he is, he obviously has more fights than these young whelps who are on the underside of the card.
How many fights does Vanderlei have?
Oh, 5.
Is it not as many as I'm thinking then? Because I feel like he's had like over 40 fights.
Oh, he has for sure, if I'm not mistaken. Because I think that his record I thought was like 28-11 at one point. Am I remembering that wrong? I'm not. I will.
Maybe all Brazilians we feel like have fought in a lot more than they actually have.
Okay, 35-12.
Okay, that's
I fucking rule right now. I was just about to be like, I'm not the best with stats. Boosh. You did not have any question as
you said 28-11 and it's 35-12.
It's not that far off. But look at this. I got the losses right. He hasn't fought since he fought Brian Stan in 2012. So his record hasn't been relevant one way or another in 3 years. So yeah, you're welcome. I just established myself as the primary. Yeah, my head just inflated. I reign supreme over this podcast, which I pay the domain on. So this is my domain.
Yeah. All right.
I'm flexing for those of you who only listen to the podcast. Anyway, so Arlovsky Reem, who do you think you got it for? Keep in mind this is Greg Jackson version Reem, even though he apparently doesn't train with Jackson or Winklejohn all that much.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Arlovsky on this. I think it's just because ever since Overeem's gone into the UFC, as far as with Brock Lesnar, and then when he lost to fucking guy that just beat Barnett with a choke.
Ben Rothwell.
It just seems like he's so smug all the damn time, and I feel like it's just one of those things that I can't get over. I'm gonna root against him all the time.
His career is kind of miraculous to me because if you look right underneath him, Bigfoot's fighting. And Bigfoot knocked him the fudge out.
Right, he did. And he was talking mad shit on Bigfoot the entire time.
And that's when Bigfoot has that great moment where he's like, looming over him, yelling at his unconscious body. I mean,
you're like, Bigfoot's gonna kill this guy right now.
And that's not that long ago. We're not that far. It just shows you, especially in the heavyweight division, key victories, key defeats.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like Overeem has stepped up until the win over JDS. That was his first legit big UFC win. And then this is where we establish if that was something of a fluke, if we can talk about JDS having a gravel chin, and whatever.
See, the thing with this fight also is it almost seems like it's going to be Arlovsky. Like the way I look at it, Arlovsky's going into the fight with that intent to win and being very hungry and aggressive. It seems like every time I see Overeem fight, regardless of who he's fighting, he's very nonchalant about his stand up. He gets hit a lot.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. So I don't know. I feel like Arlovsky might have his number.
His style's been like that for quite some time. I think back on his Pride fights, and he's very reactive, and that's one of the reasons why he has so many victories via guillotine choke.
Right.
Because it's more of a defensive.
How many standing guillotine chokes does he have? I feel like he has quite a few.
More than Uriah Faber, and that's saying something. But who do you got in the fight? You're saying Arlovsky?
I'm going with Arlovsky.
How you saying it?
You know what? It's definitely not going to go to decision. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be either first or second round.
I'm hoping so. I think that this is one where both guys have the potential to look either really good or really lackluster. Because if this does go to decision, I imagine it being
it's going to be slow and trotting forward and pressing up against the cage, and it's going to be a la Tim Sylvia. Yeah,
or when Arlovsky fought Brendan Schaub not that long ago. Right. Remember that was one of the he was vilified for that fight. It wasn't until he came back with some impressive wins that people were like, oh, okay, because especially Brendan Schaub went on his podcast and made this to do about it. But that's neither here nor there. Right. So I feel like Arlovsky He's relevant to enough people. For the UFC's career trajectory, for the business model, I think we want Arlovsky to win. But, I would not be totally shocked to see Overeem
Yeah,
win.
I mean, this is essentially the number one contender other than
Well, I mean, Arlovsky's coming off that loss to Stefan Struve. So I think that if he wins, he doesn't get a title shot. But if Reem wins, Reem will get the shot. I put my money on it because he just beat JDS and he beat Arlovsky, 2 former champions. And then who are you going to put, Fabricio Verdum or Stipe Miocic against? The winner of Travis Brown versus Cain Velasquez? No. Nope. Travis has lost. His only win comes out of finger fucking Matt Mitrio's eyeball until his hymen was broken. No. I say thee nay. Moving on.
Who do you got?
I always got Arlovsky.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of his. I remember once in undergrad when Universal Soldier Regeneration came out. I couldn't find a torrent of it. It was too early. It was 3 in the fucking morning by the time I could finish the movie because it kept, I'd have buffering issues.
You'd have to throw your computer and then find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know how you are with your buffering.
Oh yeah, buffer. Like it's the most inane
not
thing.
buffer.
Yeah, no. I am a very patient person. I can deal with people being aggressive towards me. I can deal with people being condescending towards me. But if you put a CD skipping or buffering issues, I swear to fucking God, I get possessed. Like I guarantee you, I could fight Robbie Lawler tomorrow if they fucked up my entrance music. And it was like get. Oh, so anyway, moving on. Just thinking about that made my neck tense. Bigfoot Silva versus Stefan Struve. I want Stefan Struve to win. I would love Stefan Struve to rise to the occasion. I would love for him to have a great career, but he doesn't. Remember when he got knocked out by Overeem? Like, ugh.
Yeah, it's one of those things that he gets to that next level or potentially to the next level and then just comes crashing down like a skyscraper.
Yeah. Whoa. My big frustration with Struve is that even with Henry Hooft, he hasn't established his range. He doesn't do it practically in a fight, and it's not like he's become a jiu-jitsu wizard. One of my favorite submissions of all time was when he got a belly down Russian armbar on LeVar Johnson, who is now spending 5 years in prison. We'll get on that in the broadcast.
Is that the one that you sent me a link about?
LeVar Big Johnson, yeah.
Wow.
So
scumbag.
Struve used a submission win there, and that was one of my favorites to see. And I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna see Struve reinvent himself as a jiu-jitsu guy, and he hasn't really done that.
Nothing.
So I don't know. I really wish that his career would just rise up, but I just don't see it happening.
I'm definitely there with you as far as rooting for Struve. Do I think it would happen? I don't know. It's hard to really go. I mean. I've seen Silva lose multiple times, but at the same time, anytime the guy steps in the ring, it's like there's that off chance that he's going to just clobber you in the face with one of those like cinder blocks, and you go down like a sack of potatoes.
Hey, man, he made Arlovsky look really good when Arlovsky landed that right hook on him. So, yeah, he has the potential to be a device. Both guys are 1-3 in their last 4. That kind of shows you where their careers are at
right, and it also shows what the heavyweight kind of pull is like.
They're still top 10. I mean, look at Anthony Pettis. Is like one guy who I can think of who has that many. He's 1-3 in his last 4 as well, and he's not being taken out of the top 10 or anything.
Exactly.
But these guys are like right there as well. But they're not a guy who was on a Wheaties bots. These are truly mundane heavyweights. I'm not trying to be offensive, but neither of these guys are fucking breaking records or doing anything astronomical. They're just guys. So
these guys are Cain Velasquez, Verdum.
Even then, like Verdum and Velasquez, they don't really necessarily have the stardom, but they have the credentials. And I think that's one of the things, especially in the heavyweight division, is they lack a star.
Yeah, they don't need. It almost seems like they don't need that. That moneymaker. They don't need that Conor McGregor.
Because they have instant hype. You don't need credentials when you can get a title shot off of 2-1 in your last 3. Or
right.
It's just baffling.
How many Twitter followers you have, or this or that.
Look at why Ben Rothwell never even got mentioned for a shot, but then Stipe did. Stipe knows how to work that social media game like a player.
Right.
Anyway, you know why he likes to do social media? Because he likes to get Steve paid. Miocic. Anyway, moving on. We have Jermaine Durandame versus Anna Elmo.
Elmo.
Yeah. Jermaine Durandame, she's 5-3 and she's fine, but I'm gonna root for Elmo's because
Elmo's.
that's her name.
Right.
I have no basis other than that.
That's what I was leaning on.
Remember that last time I did that and it worked out okay for me? Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but it was a few episodes back. Go on our catalog to find it because I'm sure that people do that. I don't know why I pay for bandwidth and people aren't going to use.
I don't know when it was. Actually, wait, I think I do. Did we ever talk about how amazing it was when I totally called like the Stephen Thompson knockout of Hendricks?
Yes, we did.
Did you guys talk about it?
Yes, we did. And
how much flack I got when I was just like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go knockout, and you're like, really, Hendricks, you're gonna go ahead and knock him out?
Yeah. But I mean, those ones stick out better because when I'm right,
was that amazing?
When you pick the favorite and you're right, it washes in the background. But when people make like the ash, like think about this: when Chael Sonnen plays Nostradamus and makes this crazy prediction, he's so wrong so much of the time. But when he's right, you're like, oh my god, no. But Wonder Boy versus Roy McDonald is the day before my wedding, so we're gonna be watching that shit.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm gonna have a Red Bull in this hand and my hopes and dreams in this hand. I'm gonna be pouring this one out on the carpet while because being married is a dumb idea.
No.
I'm throwing my life away. Megan Anderson, come save me from my gigantus. But don't do that because I really put my money on my gigantus. That's why I picked her.
Right.
Truly, like eugenically speaking, our kids are going to beat the shit out of your kids. Let's stay the fuck out of our kids' school. I'm telling you right now. With my insane level of energy, both of our physiques, which, it's not the best, but we get points for style. Doom. And my understanding of fight technique and my ability to espouse vernacular. Let's move on. We got Nikita Krylov, the guy, Al Capone. Remember him? The guy with the hat and the gloves when he wasn't even in the UFC. He's like, oh, yes, I will be UFC. I wear the gloves. I take a photo shoot. Nikita Krylov. He's not that great, but he's fun. Versus Francimar Barroso. Okay, I'm going to go with the guy with the hat because I can. Moving on, Carolina Kowala-Willowicz versus Heather Jo Clark.
Did we go over Einstein or did we skip?
Oh, I put that in the co-main slot because I'm thinking of it as the people's co-main because I think it's a way more credible fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I feel like we missed one.
Tumanov's on a 5-fight streak right now, and Nelson is 5-2 in the UFC. He had his most recent losses being to his only two losses,
Damian Maia
and Rick Story. And Rick Story, if you look at his style and Alexander Tumanov's style, dude, I think that Tumanov has a very significant chance to win this fight,
right.
And I think that it would be great for his career. I don't necessarily think he did enough to beat Lorenz Larkin, but I didn't think it was necessarily the robbery that you did. So going into this one, I think I have my money hard and fast on Tumanov. I don't expect him to necessarily out-grapple Nelson, but I definitely expect him to outstrike him and avoid being taken down. So I think it's either going to be a KO or a decision.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, essentially it's going to be like he'd say Gunnar Nelson's a one-trick pony, but he's going to try and take what's his name, Tumanov? Yeah, Tumanov. He's going to take Tumanov or try to take Tumanov down multiple times. So, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think it's going to be either a decision or a knockout.
Next, we have Carolina Kowilowicz versus Heather Jo Clark. Kowilowicz is 8-0, so I'm just going to put my money on her because I have no reason not to. Moving on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Horiguchi versus Neil Seery, 16-2. One of those two coming to Demetrius Johnson, 16-11. But this is one of those things, much like the women's division that we were talking about with Invicta. Both these guys are flyweights. They're smaller guys who fought at bigger weight classes, different weight classes. I still want to give it to Horiguchi. I think that he fought Demetrius Johnson a little too young,
right.
And he stayed in it until the very end. He lasted longer than an Olympic gold medalist. Keep that in mind the next time you think of a guy who got his ass whooped by Demetrius Johnson.
Right.
This guy lasted until there was 1 second left in the entire fight to tap out.
I feel like, okay, so drawing back to fighting in different weight classes, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I feel like they shouldn't necessarily take away or not show stats as far as win-loss in other weight classes, but they should separate it. I think
that
would actually kind of, it would help people understand the fighter as far as, okay, well, this is what he was at this weight class, this is what he's at now. You know what I mean?
Adding context,
because essentially it's okay. He's 17-10 or something like that, and then but he has majority of his wins at one weight class, and then he's not as good in the other, or vice versa.
Look at Damian Maia. If you looked at Damian Maia and you disregarded his middleweight credentials, he would be just inarguably the number one contender at welterweight. So I could see that making some good sense. Hustam Khabilov. Do you remember this guy? He fought Benson Henderson and kind of fell off into obscurity. He's fought like an average of once a year for the last 2 years because he lost to Benson, he lost to Narius, and then he beat Norman Park this year. So he's a guy who he's 18-3. So his last two were the last two fights before he beat Norman Park.
Right.
So this is a guy who's on a win streak of 1 who definitely needs to be competitive versus a guy who's coming into the UFC on a 4-fight win. This isn't a debut, but he's 4-0 in the UFC and he's 11-1 overall.
Right.
That's a scary fight if you're Khabilov, because then you could legitimately go from being a title contender to cut from the UFC in 3 fights.
Did somebody say Anthony Pettis? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be an interesting fight. I don't know who do you got winning on that one.
I would like to say Khabilov, but I have no guarantee.
Right.
I think that this Chris Wade kid, he could be a legitimate young prospect, and I would like to, whoever wins, I hope they do it in impressive fashion, because I never remember Khabilov that much clout behind him. He never really, even when he was fighting for a title, it was like, oh yeah, he's fighting for a title because nobody else is here, and it's on Fox, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that. Moving on down the card, Nick Hine, 13-2 Nick Hine versus John Tuck, 9-2 John Tuck. Do you like how I did that, where I just repeated the same thing?
John Tuck.
Yeah, I feel like he should marry Fallon Fox, and then be Fallon Tuck. No, she doesn't have anything to tuck anymore, guys. Come on. I'm just messing around. I'm going to be in the women's restroom. I don't really care about this fight. No. I don't care about Jan Cabral versus Rizai Madadi. You know the thing I care about with Madadi? I care that his stupid name is Mad Dog. No, wrong.
Mad Dog Madadi?
Yeah. You know what his ring name used to be? Riza Your Dottie Madadi.
Wow.
Yeah. Just take it from Joe Stevenson, because Joe Stevenson's certainly not going to fight him and take it back.
It's true. What's that guy been up to?
He runs Cobra Kai Gym. One of my friend's nephews trains with him, and he got fatter training there.
Really?
Yes. So probably not the best option.
All right. Did you see that Cobra Kai meme?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I watched
Johnny Never Lost.
I watched How I Met Your Mother, and was Neil Patrick Harris's character legitimately believes that he's the good guy, that Johnny's good. There's some pretty funny arguments about it. I love fan theories like that. One girl got me to go on multiple dates with her because she started her opening line on OkCupid years ago with, have you ever heard that Fight Club and Ferris Bueller theory? And I was like, do go on. And she was like, well, the theory is that Ferris doesn't actually exist, and it's all in Cameron's head, and Cameron's just like Ed Norton. I was like, that's complete bullshit, but I like it. I'll hump your face later for that. And I did, because I'm a man of my word.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I feel like that's pretty much the equivalent of this whole card is me getting my face humped by the UFC. We're talking about this is starvation theory. Right. Where they're like, yeah, this card is good enough to stand on its own, but when we're all a week removed from the last UFC, it's funny. We used to think of it in terms of months. Now it's like if I have a week off, I'm like, oh shit. I found myself jonesing and watching the Titan FC event this weekend, which was not bad. I like some of the fights. I like the fact that cocky Joker guy lost because he was kind of annoying me with his little head movement. I like that Steve Carl lost because
is that the one where the guy was running around and he got in the guy's face before, and then he just got knocked out in 4 or 5 seconds?
Oh no, this was
is that different?
No, this was he was a talented guy fighting a guy from his name was Kaio I'm sorry, Kyle, I'm forgetting your last name, but you're not going to watch this anyway. But he's from the Black Zillions, and he just outworked him, just stayed the course and won a decision. And the look on the other guy's face, he was doing like the whole smile, like, I won. And then he lost, and he like throws his hat down, like, fucking bullshit. It's like, well, you just kind of coasted there, my friend.
Right.
So he kind of had the Anderson Silva flaw where it's like, oh, I'm good. Not that good. Not good enough to avoid hard work, my friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you would like us to cover any other local shows or anything, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as it stands, I think we're just going to go back to really covering UFCs. It's all we can afford to do with our time because there's just not that much of it, and there's a lot of UFC. I mean, they leave a thunderous silence when they're off for a week, but they come back with a fury because we're going to have this one. We have next week.
Right.
Next week's 198, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so, yeah.
We have plenty coming up for you.
Definitely.
Please stay tuned for the broadcast, which is coming up next. If you want to send us comments, questions, concerns, anything, please feel free to do so. This has been Brian. I've been Jake. For the beard guy and the ear guy, we're out.
See you guys.
Pressing the stop button. Where? Stop button.